Right. The first thing to quorum is 2.
Is it one? Sorry.
Committee of 6, 25%.
Well, the same. That's what I was saying.
So the first thing to do, because the chair is giving apologies because he's self-isolating at home, is for the committee to vote and agree a chair. So
this should be. It's a coin. This should be interesting.
yeah, anyone have a coin? Is it that same?
I want to take a picture of this.
No, I want to propose Councillor Frost.
You won't get a second. You won't get a second.
Councillor Frost, chair. Okay. Over to you, Councillor Frost.
Right, okay. Your big chance.
Yeah, my big debut. Right. Are all members happy with the minutes as they stand?
No.
Oh, wasn't expecting that. Throw me the birds.
Well, it was just looking through, and I'll tell you, I was looking through my correspondence, something on a week, ages ago, nothing to do with this committee. But I would like to, on page 6, the climate emergency, second paragraph, the second sentence, I would like to move, and it's going to find the second word, but that second sentence should begin a key requirement, then the. Now, I really, frankly, I couldn't care less. The reason I am moving it, I was always wanting to challenge that bit we put in italics on the front page under minutes on all of our committee meetings and council meetings.
Can you work out which bit, sorry?
I'm looking at the very front page on the agenda, under minutes. There is a section in italics which says that there's a constitutional requirement that queries related to the accuracy should be submitted in writing to the Monitoring Office beforehand. And indeed, there is a requirement in our constitution that queries should be submitted in advance. Our constitution, and I think it's section 6A, which deals with procedure, 13B that deals with motions that can be raised without notice, says that you can raise a motion without notice on the accuracy of the minutes. So given that we have a constitution that, to me, and I have discussed this in the past with Simon Bowie, but it just strikes me that we have a constitution that says two quite different things, and I propose an amendment really to make that point.
So this isn't. We're not talking about the
It's not this.
veracity of the minutes themselves. We're talking about the way the agendas are phrased.
I mean,
Maria, do you have any? I can't see. It seems very uncontentious to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the part of the point.
All right.
To be honest, do you have an issue with the word, any of the word in the minutes?
well, I would have put a key. What does it say? A key requirement rather than the, or a number of key requirements.
But there's 2 points here. So if I can hang on a second, there's 2 points here. We're talking about the way the thing in italics that obviously appears on all agendas. So that's 1 point I think that Ken's making. And there's another point about the minutes themselves. We've got to split this.
I think the only thing we can deal with here today is if there is a change requested to the minutes.
Not have the agendas themselves.
Yeah, and they should be identified in advance so that, you know, comments can be listened to or whatever. But if you're... The substance of the proposal to change it from a the to an a is...
Yeah, that doesn't seem too contentious, does it? Is that the only change to the minutes themselves that you'd like changed?
I'm sure if I went through it, we'd find more. That was the first one I came to.
Okay.
And I make it purely because I think the procedure we've got.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
If other members of the SMI committee don't
I don't think they're material to the meaning of the minutes would be the only,
should we
the
go
only
with that?
point I would say.
Yeah.
And then how do we progress? Is the other point, is that a monitoring point? Or?
I think the only direction we can go in on that is to refer your comment to the monitoring officer. But didn't you just say you've done that before?
Well, I had discussions that I think ended up with Simon Bowie simply saying, look, we're going to go out of business anyway. After not really that fuss, I hope that the new unitary will have a more internally consistent set of rules when it comes to minutes and other things.
The only thing to do with that is refer to Tony, the new management officer, tomorrow, if you have that issue. But I don't think what's proposed is material.
No, exactly. So if we can agree that changing to that R, and how can we involve Tony then? Does Ken just drop him an email? Or?
Well, I'm quite happy to send him an email.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if you could, we'll have to change. It should be amended on there if that's what's been agreed by the committee.
Okay.
So the page 6. It's not helping me that it says page 59.
No, that's different council.
Change that to that. And then if you could sign those as a correct record. Chairman, Councillor Frost.
There we are.
Wonderful. Apologies for absence. I just temporarily turned my phone on in case I received any from Ian and Lauren. I haven't, so the apologies. I record a marks, I guess.
Yeah.
Any members interested? No one wants to declare? That's very brief. Councillor Osborne.
Oh, hopefully.
I just wonder if we are being fair in inviting you to come to a committee and talking to two people. Is there value in when we do and trying to rearrange when you might have an audience?
Well, I've turned up now.
So it's up to you. You say you turned up, so it's totally to you.
I'm quite happy.
Okay.
This can be shared with other members if you wish.
Well, it's quite handy because both of you are members of the planning committee.
Right.
So hopefully it won't take too long. Hopefully you'll understand it all. Yes, that's me. Right. As I frequently tell you, I've been a member of planning. I've been a member of the council for 30 years. I came on in '84, decided that my business would go bankrupt if I didn't stop being a councillor in '96. So I went off for 6 years and then came back again. So I have been vice chairman and I've been chairman, as you're aware. And I always say to new members, which I must have said to you, make the decision, blink and then forget it. Because if you don't, it eats you away and you carry on for weeks with it. Right, we move on. Planning committee meetings, some things that have happened over the years. When I first came to this council, we dealt with probably 90% of all the planning applications that came in. We finished the meetings. It wasn't unreasonable to finish between 11 and 12 at night. We were dealing with a lot of small applications, and the only ones the officers dealt with were silly things like porches and things like that. We dealt with everything else. They used to have site visits in those days, but that was before Google Earth. We don't have site visits now because we can go to Google Earth quite reasonably. We don't need site visits. We do need them if it's a... We do need one if there are very, very good reasons for it, and the committee can give planning reasons while they're needed, but we try and avoid them. There are several reasons why. There has been several tweaks to the Constitution over the years, like planning reasons needed for this and planning reasons needed for that if you ask something to go to committee. So a lot of things have altered in the Constitution. Meetings now are 4 weekly, previously they were 3 weekly. We are told by the government that we must delegate at least 90% of our planning applications to officers, which is what we do. You're not a very good council if you don't achieve that. We do achieve that, and we do delegate, so that we don't get as many planning applications now as we used to get. So that's why we've gone to 4 weeks rather than 3 weeks. We start the planning committee meetings, as you're aware, with housekeeping. It's meant to be, I usually do it slightly light-hearted, serious and make the point, but try and put it over slightly light-hearted. There's no clappiness in doing, which I think if you look at the faces of the public, it gets them a bit more used to from it being a serious meeting, they come in onto a serious meeting, to the fact that we're normal, yeah. There are always winners and losers. You've only got to look at the members of the public and the applicants, and you will see they will pull faces toward you, and they don't like you or they do like you. You don't get any, you don't make friends being a member of planning committee, which I'm sure you're aware. And we put those things to the test in January with the biofuel application. They pretty well worked with all those hundreds of people there, except for a silly comment by one person that actually clapped when I said there was a health and safety issue, which I think was a bit irresponsible. But besides that, it pretty well went all right. Right, planning officers in short supply. They have been. A year, 18 months ago, we were several planning officers short, and we had to employ costly temporary ones, I'm afraid. But because of the work that we were taking in and the money that we were taking for this council, for the benefit of this council, we were able to employ more planning officers and pay them a better wage. The difficulty was the authorities around us were paying their planning officers better wages than we were able to pay them. But now we can compete, and people want to come to us. We've got lots of good staff now. We've got loyal long-term members, very good short-term members, and very good trainees while they're actually learning, while they're qualifying. You've only got to go into planning department, I'm sure you'll do, and you'll find an absolutely wonderful atmosphere in there. It's a very good department to go to.
Sorry.
It's all right. Right. I mentioned about the 90% decisions, the performance indicators that we report to committees, and the risk of the loss of planning powers if the targets are not met. In other words, it simply means that should we start to refuse applications which should be approved, and they go to appeal and win, and we lose a certain percentage of those. We can lose planning powers. So if we start to refuse applications that should get planning permission for no reason at all, and that they get the planning permission on appeal, we're marked down very, very badly for it. You can see the number of applications we get. A pre-application is where an applicant pays this council some extra money to get some advice about the possibilities of achieving what they would like to achieve with their planning permission, and if not, some advice about how they can do it. You will see the appeals. Most of those will be delegated, but some are from this council, from its members as well, but a lot are delegated refusals. So out of the 90% that are delegated, probably about 95% of them are refusals, between 95 and 99. Most are delegated approvals. It's very rare you see a delegated refusal. So the highest percentage is a delegated approval. Now the person, when he gets a delegated refusal, has the chance of putting in another an application to regularise the position and to get planning permission, or to put a different application in, or to go to appeal. So they get a free go, it doesn't cost them any more, or they can go to appeal. And if a person gets planning permission, obviously they don't pay anything else, it's just the objectors don't like it.
Would you prefer me to wait until the end, or can I ask a question?
No, you can ask a question.
Are you saying that if you get a delegated refusal, that the applicant can simply request at no cost for it to go to committee? I think, is that what you mean?
No, they get a free go to resubmit another application within 6 months.
Yeah, they can submit another one.
Obviously with some changes.
Yeah.
Yes. So in other words, you get delegated refusal, so you come back to the officers and say, well, why? You've got a reason why it's been refused. So you say to the officers, how can I overcome that? And the advice would be, well, to do this, to do that. If you do that, you'll probably get a recommendation for approval. So they either go back and do this and do that, and then get a recommendation for approval, or they may think, well, we know it all, and they'll put in a different application to see if that goes through.
Thank you. And with regards to the 90%, as Anton said, so the planning committee only see 10% of applications.
Yeah,
the other 90% have been delegated, probably even less than that.
Yeah.
And what, just to clarify what you just said before that, of that 90%, did you say that the vast majority are refused?
Or approved.
They're approved.
They're a Freudian slip.
Right.
Yeah, they're approved.
Did I say the wrong thing?
You did, yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Vast majority are approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, there's 2 temporary stop notices served. This is when enforcement go out and find a very serious breach of something that's happened in planning. Let me give you an example. You'll remember out in Cecile Irving Swift's place, a neighbour had a part, tried to get a new road put in next to their house. It was refused. It went to appeal. It was refused on appeal. So then the neighbour went on holiday and decided to get a contractor to do it while they were on holiday. Well, luckily the neighbour happened to be Cecile, who lived next door, who was able to tell the planning department about it, and they went out and put a temporary stop notice on it. And because it's illegal, you go straight to court if you if you do that. It's a criminal offence if you go against that. Enforcement notices. 2 enforcement notices, 1 stop notice and 1 community protection notice. In fact, I think that stop notice is the one I'm referring to, it must be. I would guess, yeah. Right, investigations, public expectations, enforcement. That's probably the most difficult word for people to understand. In fact, members don't even understand it. Enforcement to a lot of people means you are not doing this, go out there, planning officer, and stop it from happening. I'm afraid it doesn't happen like that. The first thing that a planning officer, enforcement officer should do when going out to investigate something not happening, should try and regularise the position. That is what national government tell district councils to do. So the first approach is to go out there, you're doing this, you're doing that, without planning permission, you must regularise the position by either putting in a planning application, stop doing it, or whatever. The fact that they put a planning application in, and it is possible to run the system so that it takes probably a year to 18 months to come to a conclusion. It doesn't mean the planning officer, enforcement officer isn't doing his job. It means he is doing his job, but not to what the public perception of the job is. The job isn't to go out there and slap the wrist and take them to court, because you can't do it like that. So the expectations are not that high, but it doesn't happen exactly how people think it happens, which I'm sure you, as planning committee members, you know. You realise it's a permissive regime, and retrospective planning is perfectly okay, although it annoys you, it annoys me, and it annoys many members of the public, but it's allowed in the system, I'm afraid. It's person beware, so they can build their house without planning permission, and you see many examples in the national press, but it can be taken down as well. Right, formal enforcement action is a last resort and must be reasonable, yeah. And regular reports and member training, well, I'm sure you realise you get that. Information is easily available via the council website.
Do you know about that? That's what we were going to show you that.
Yes, well, I didn't realise this either, but I had a demonstration of it. You plug it, put in any number you like, but at the moment we're on 00. So it'll be a...
I normally go to the planning portal to do that. I didn't realise we could do it.
First page search, and it takes you straight there.
Straight there?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's a very quick one now.
Has it always been able? Has that always been possible?
We set it up about 2 years ago. I regularly remind members about it. It's a normal thing to the parish councils, but that's one of the quickest, easiest things. Once you've got the number, it's like opens everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
you opened up a really good one there as well, haven't you?
Did I?
Yeah, look at it. Yeah. And that's the great big one between Buckby and Daventry.
There you go. That was just a fluke.
And you will see that all the associated parish councils have been asked for comments as well. So, a lot easier to get information via the website. If you want more information, contact the admin team. Case files are always available for viewing. What you can't do though is walk in and talk to any old planning officer, you know, what are you doing about this, and why can't you do this, and why can't Joe do this, and that sort of thing. You can't do that. Should you wish to talk, go straight to the top man. Go to Keith or Eamon, whoever is your particular area person, and the questions will be answered. But you can't lobby them. I don't lobby them, and I'm sure you won't. So you're not allowed to.
If we have an inquiry, is it best practice to email the planning officer then, or is it best practice to email Eamon?
The manager. Yeah. The manager.
It's either Keith or Eamon, whichever is your area.
Keith or Eamon, Keith and Eamon, it'll be one of their cases.
Email it to both of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So the only exception, I suppose, is if it's Keith or Amos. If they happen to be the case officer, which is they don't do as many cases as anyone else, but in their absence it could be the principals, so the other two that go to committee regularly, Chung or Catherine. But yeah, that way you're
got all bases covered.
You are not breaching any rules around perception of, you know, putting pressure on officers to take a certain action.
Oh gosh, so not only is it a better doing it, actually you'd actually discourage going straight to the bank.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Bear in mind, everything ends up on the public file, so if you email them, that can end up on the public file. And to the outside world, it would look like somebody's lobbying one way or another.
Right.
And the difficult thing as a member is that people will phone you up, people will email you. For instance, I had a developer the other day email me in Longbury and say, I'm trying to get 5 houses on a site where there's a big house, and the planning officer's saying they'll only allow 2. They want to knock the big house down and put 2. Can you help me get the 5 because it's not viable? So you have to answer him properly. And being a member of the planning committee, you can't say, yes, I will help you. You can't say, no, I won't help you. But you can say, I'm a member of the planning committee, I hear what you're saying, and I will hear other things at planning committee, I will hear the complete case, and then I will make a decision, but I hear what you're saying. So that's how I answered him. So no member of the planning committee can do that. You can't say to a neighbour that you'll go along and support their view. You'll hear what your neighbour's saying, say to them, the safest way is to say to them, I hear what you're saying, I listen to what you're saying, I'm going on to planning committee, I shall hear all the other side, all the presentation on it, and then I shall make up my mind. That way it covers yourself. If you go along and say, yes, I'll support you, I'll go along and I'll stop it, I'll propose it be refused, you can be in serious trouble yourself.
It's not just it's not just that an individual councillor could be in trouble. It's actually that the council's decision can be called in fault. It can be the source of a judicial review, for example, if somebody felt there was some wrongdoing. So
don't go on site visits yourself as well. That can be open to interpretation.
drive away from the public
questions that I'll come back to, but as you've raised it, I mean that is one of them. An individual can't make a site visit and that site visit to be official. I think there are a lot of members of the planning committee, I hope there are others, who try to at least look at a site.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So that they can visualise it. Now that's different from actually knocking at the applicant's door or the objector's door and saying, what do you think?
Yeah, not from a public place, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
At one time, parish councils used to go. I've been a parish councillor for longer than I've been a district councillor, and our parish council used to go out and have a site visit. So you used to get 10 members of a parish council having a site visit. And when this council used to have site visits back in the 70s and 80s, you wouldn't believe it. You used to get the local parish council turn up, the planning committee members turn up, the agent for the applicant, and all the neighbours turn up. Can you imagine what that's like? It can be pretty awful. It's pretty awful sometimes in the council chamber when all those people are present.
That's why the Constitution has got a very clear, prescribed process for site visits. There's only been a couple where I did the planning committee, and probably the memorable one was the Weedon Crossroads one.
Right.
Which I think you chaired that, didn't you? Because the meeting is chaired by the committee chairman when you have a formal site visit, and it's no other parties involved. It's just
the one for the Tesco.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the committee
Really
felt it. Do you remember the conversion?
I think it's the Fort
It was the Globe Hotel.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
To a Tesco.
Yeah, I was missing them.
Well, it was felt by members of the committee, including myself, that it was not the safest place to have our ticks coming in and out, and also people coming in and out at the crossroads there. And we asked for a site visit, and County turned up, which is a very rare thing, several of them, and convinced us that it was perfectly okay.
It was exactly what was needed, because it was to explain the situation with regard to existing access and everything else. And yeah, that was one occasion where you could say there was really strong planning reasons.
Right, that's that one.
Yeah.
Over there.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the first bit's obvious. They're recommending area planning committees, which is similar to what we have at the moment. So when you go to Unitary, hopefully there will still be a Daventry planning committee, which will have Daventry members on it.
Well, that's what the officers here are recommending. Anyway.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, that's common sense, yeah.
What actually gets through the sausage machine remains to be seen, but that's what we're pushing for.
That's great.
The other point I would make is, again, back in the 80s, the planning committee dealt with the policy side of planning, as well as
Development control.
As well as development control. That worked very, very well. Now at the moment, if you're a member of strategy group, you go along and you hear all these orders, planning orders that have gone through. They come through strategy. Well, 99% of the members of strategy haven't got a clue about planning. Right? I haven't got a clue. Now when it used to come to planning committee, at least the members of the planning committee do have a clue about policy, and were able to have a lot better input into what is right and what is wrong and what needs altering the strategy group that need to, and I think it was a lot better system. So I shan't be around for it, but I would hope that that policy is decided amongst the planning committees, because they will learn more. The committee system works far better than the county council system, believe me. I learnt my housing knowledge being on a housing committee. I learnt my environmental health knowledge being on an environmental health committee. That's how you learn. It's like a permanent training course. And I think we're there now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. They are present.
Well, I asked my questions during it, so have you got any questions?
One or two things just to. I think this final issue of reorganisation. I'm optimistic. I mean, I've been on the sort of task and finish group that discussed the constitution, and indeed the joint committee passed it back to the joint task and finish group. Maybe they don't just call it a working group, I don't know. But anyway, we passed it back to do further work on this whole issue of devolution of decision making to some of the localities. So I think the chances, I mean, clearly until we know who's actually on the Unitary, we can't be confident of anything. But at least from the people who are pushing for it, there are good prospects that there will still be a local planning committee in Daventry, whether it's Daventry district or how far what you do multiple things, or for decision. It does raise issues though about then. Well, what are the practices going to be, given that we have slightly different practices in the three councils?
That's what
county council, yeah. And it's just something that I picked up from discussing with with others. I mean, we've been talking about site visits. I think that one of the standing agenda items on the front page of things for South of Thans, I think I'm right in saying this, that it lists what they're going to discuss. They're going to discuss minutes
declarations of members' interests and then reports of site visits. Site visits for them is something that they undertake quite regularly, no doubt in response to in response to issues that they feel they need to have visits to investigate. And I wouldn't suggest that we have site visits for the sake of having site visits, but it does suggest that in other areas there is a much more willingness or much more eagerness to make a site visit than it may be that we have in Daventry.
As there was on the group, the LGR group until the last meeting, agreed on this, it is different practices elsewhere. The schemes of delegation for Northampton and Southampton are very different to ours, so there's much less that goes to committee, and they are more routine. Northampton is routine to do site visits, and similar to Southampton, but they've got a different set of planning applications that end up with the planning committee in any case. And county council routinely do site visits, but the point is the various different heads of development control are having these discussions, because actually that's what's going on, because they will work out what is the best way to deal with that. And it may be that the context that is Northampton, it might well be that they can and should continue to do site visits, but this is all coming out in the mix. But you see, it is different practices, but what works well here is, for the long-standing members,
there's some different background.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go back to when we used to do site visits, and now we don't, in my mind, it tapered out when different members of the planning committee, because over the years you get different members, and if I said to the current members of the planning committee, we'll have site visits, there would probably be several that work during the day and don't want a separate day going on site visits. That's what happened in that era. They did. First of all, there are two things that happened. We had a video camera. The council bought a video camera, and when I was vice chairman, I used to take it out and record for the council to see the pictures, which cut down the number of site visits. Then there was the people moaning that they couldn't get any more time off work during the day and wanted site visits at night, which was a bit ridiculous because it was okay in the summer but was no good in the winter. So the video camera was good until members' interest started to clock up, and somebody said, well, you're operating the camera. So I said yes, only because I was a TV engineer and I played with cameras, that's all. But it's very easy to buy us a camera, and reports came out about that, how easy it is to buy us pictures with the video camera. So we stopped doing that. And then Google Earth came in and made it very easy to see it, be it sometimes a couple of years out of date. So that's a bit of the background of Daventry, but as you're saying, it could well be the county council do a site visit for everything. Now, I personally think, I've been on their site visits, so every application they have a site visit to. No, I personally don't think it's...
presumably they're looking at a different order of project. They're not looking at somebody's new porch.
No.
No, but they're looking at
minerals and waste and all sorts.
Minerals and waste and schools. Not so many schools now as they used to, because most of them are academies, but they can give themselves planning permission in schools.
Okay.
One of the other differences, certainly with Southampton, and I think also with Northampton Borough, is that they, like us, they offer spaces for a small number of people for or against an application to talk for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Where we differ, they then have opportunities for the members of the committee to ask questions of those who have spoken. have we not thought of doing that? There are many times where issues come up. I remember saying, look, do you think that Mr. Smith would tell us? And you have to say, well, actually, Mr. Smith isn't allowed to, but sometimes you as chair might actually.
Yeah, I've done it as chair, but I accept that it is practice for members to do it. It has been brought up before, but there's always been. I mean, my thought is if that happened, we'd have an awful lot, the meetings would be extended an awful lot longer. Probably not to the benefit, because some people, I think, would play to the gallery on that. I think when an obvious answer would be needed, when an obvious question would be needed to be asked to get the answer the committee want, I would hopefully ask on your behalf, because I have done several times, as you were. But I can see it being misused as well as used, Ken.
The other thing is as well, the speaking slots are, that's the last bit of the process. Many hours of work have gone into getting an application to planning committee. Most of the material for you to be making a decision, and frankly, just about everything that an appeal inspector is going to be considering in due course, if appropriate, is in that report. So it's and there's nothing anyone can do if somebody comes along and says what they like in the 3-minute speaking slot. We've got no way to verify that. So you kind of have to weigh up with a bit of a pinch of salt. And I sat for enough committees, and I'm sure you'll remember this more, where a speaker will say something that can absolutely change the committee's mind.
It may not be true.
Sometimes that isn't true, and that's quite a difficult thing to manage. So
you would never accept a position in which a court took a decision saying, well, we don't actually need to listen to the witnesses because we've got all this paperwork that we've got from the prosecutor.
But the planning system is not set up to cross-examine the speakers. How much weight you give to the speakers is going to be less than.
Yeah, they have to swear by oath. Witnesses.
It's quasi-judicial, it's not entirely. So if following a speaker's 3 minutes, a planning officer comes back and says we weren't aware of any of that, that's quite a big clue really, because they're not going to. Well, it wouldn't be appropriate for them to discredit somebody having a speaking slot. So it's.
But if they did come back and say we're not aware of that, then that validates the whole reason for having witnesses there, for having speakers there.
Can I start with this?
Most people are perfectly, but it's subjective. It's planning. People have different viewpoints.
It doesn't make it correct.
Before the constitution changed, which was part of the reason why it has to be a planning reason to call it a committee, we found ourselves frequently, and it's probably not happened much since you've been on the planning committee, we frequently found ourselves refereeing hideous neighbour disputes, didn't we? And that was,
there were some nasty cases.
You wouldn't have. Members were quite happy that we all knew that was just a nasty spat between two parties, and we had to focus on the planning issues. So.
There was one the other day. Can I start with this? If somebody with their 3 minutes says something that seems to be so significant that we as members feel we need to get some clarification, accepting that we can't go back to the person who said it. In that situation, we could go to the officers and in an extreme situation, if it was really significant, and we just felt we needed clarification. It was that important, and it was sort of make or break.
I was
about to say that.
Yeah.
That would be the route of.
You guys have a good solid reason to defer, and officers would say that. Because of course, if you defer, there might be a risk that we could be facing an appeal for non-determination. So, it's significant enough in the weight. Some things are very finely balanced. So, yeah.
Okay. Exactly, yes. All right. Yeah. So it would have to be. It really would have to be significant. It wouldn't just have to be, a vague opinion that it might be significant. It would have to be so obviously significant.
Yes, it would. Because you could get an applicant on the last few days of his application, and he's just about to go through, and one of his neighbours is saying something so significant that it warrants a deferral. The applicant doesn't want the deferral, so he's quite annoyed at that. So the time runs out, so he can appeal against it not being determined in the time. Correct?
Yeah, that's right, yes.
So he can get planning permission without going to the committee, because the time's run out.
It becomes automatic, if it?
Yeah, so it would have to be a significant issue, and that we haven't got, because we've got all the case papers with us. The officers
But we'd be
have got all the
warned
case
if it was
papers
approaching that deadline and the implication. We'd be sorry to interrupt. If we'd be warned, wouldn't we? If we were approaching that point, and actually the Bible Medical Centre was a bit in that territory, wasn't it? It got to that stage where it would have to be a deferral could mean automatic acceptance. We would be, as members, would be warned if we were into that territory.
Unless the applicant was happy for something to be extended for a particular reason. But if it was, the applicant is not happy and it's an objector that's trying to get you to defer, and it's the other way around. Now that's a difficult one, the Byfield one. Waiting for
every sense.
I'm interested in waiting for it to come back, actually. It's a good discussion. It's a good point made.
I agree. Ken, but there are other points that you want to...
I'll be quick. There's one thing that I used, one of your slides put it that now that information is easily available from the website. My response to that is yes and no. I accept it is easy, as it was demonstrated to us, even easier than I thought, to go through and get a listing of all the documents that relate to an application. Now, that's all very well for most applications. We have had some applications, I can think of two, and in my time, two big ones. Was the one with the two applications around the canal proposal, and then I can think to one that was big, was the application for the care home, residential home that's been built up in Middlemore. In these cases, the number of separate PDFs that were listed were a wee over 100. Now, you can't expect, I hope you don't expect every member of the planning committee to wade through downloading separately 100 different forms. Certainly, no member of the public is likely to do it. I've got to say, in all these cases where you get concerned members of the public, they actually go down an awful lot more than I do. But it is sometimes very difficult to know which are the PDFs that you need to download to get a grasp of precisely what it's going to look like, where is this going to be, what the implications are going to be for you. Now, I have in the past raised with planning officers the possibility, I think I've raised it within a meeting, the possibility of a big application, there being some sort of summary that is produced. Now, I know that the argument comes back and says, well, difficult to summarise. Different people would summarise something a different way. I fully accept that. The papers that are written for the planning committee, different people would write for them in different ways.
The papers are written for an appeal inspector, because that's your training, because that's your ultimate goal.
Okay.
You've got to be ready to defend your decision.
But in the same sense, not as a paper for the planning committee, but a paper that guides anybody who wants to be concerned about it. I mean, the last one I had a lot of correspondence on was when we were going to have a retail park at the bottom of Ashby Road. There were lots of people that wanted to know what were the sizes of the buildings, how close were they going to be to the neighbouring houses, where were how were the lorries going to get in and out, what were the diversions going to be on the diversion of the roads around. But all of these questions were there. If you had the patience to go through over 100 files, you'd have found the answers to all of these.
I think sometimes applicants do provide those, but that,
I think what Kenny's trying to say is, somewhere in there, I actually partially agree with him. There ought to be a quick one-pager that simplifies it,
Even if
and
it
points you
pointed
towards
to
the important parts of it. Of the very, very big ones, because the very, very big ones, there are tons of pages to go through, and you can't get straight to it, and you've got to wade through them. So I actually agree with him. It is difficult, but I equally see that there has to be those pages, because it's got to be set up if it goes to.
Can I put it to the three of you? Look, this is part of in my opinion, a wider problem, which is that the and it's not just in this council. When I look at other councils, it's the same. And so much of the material that comes from these councils and council offices is written for people on the inside. And I know talk's cheap, and I could just say this, and it could be minutes, but it's honestly true that people that regularly say to me, whether it's about consultations or whatever, like all the stuff surrounding this, all the invitations for feedback and information, all this were done in such a way, and using words that were not. Would completely. If you work in a planning department, or if you're in a planning committee, might be logical, but they're just not. And my personal opinion is that many things on it's a brilliant website, and it is all there. But some of those attachments, I mean, I've just got used to just clicking all of them until I find the one I wanted. So I put it to you guys that it could be made more user friendly, but actually so could so much of what we do.
Yeah. That's a fair comment.
Yeah, and like you said, on those big applications, there's such a volume. Case officers, you can guarantee they've gone through and they know it all inside out, but it's not part of their job to provide some sort of an easy summary through. These are the key documents. Because actually they're going to change as well, aren't they? Because of course some of these applications could be 2 or 3 years before they come for a decision.
Sure. Well, it even leads you to the confusion that you find that you've been looking at a document that you've downloaded, only to realise that further down the list there's a revised one and so on. Yeah. And it's for these things, not in essence for a reapplication, but for the ones where you have, lists and lists of stuff.
There's a pity there isn't a page that says Councillor's Simple Guide or Quick Guide.
Yeah. But often for the major applications, often in the committee report, they make a point. The conditions will often refer to specific versions of drawings and everything else. So that if there's a clue anywhere, it's in that final report and on the list of conditions at the end. That's your key to the key documents.
It's a real task for the new authority. It's pointless too many changes now, assuming it all goes ahead. I think that's the right point. Were there any other things? Well, for Councillor, I think that's extremely helpful, enlightening. I certainly learned some things tonight, and thank you very much for coming in.
There was one more thing I wanted to say, just a sentence, and it's something you to be considered later on the agenda, somewhere on your agenda, because I haven't got one, but I scrolled through online. It says that you're discussing looking at people's reaction to refusal somewhere. I can't remember the exact wording. Setting up a task panel.
The external perception of delegated authority to refuse permission.
Can I respectfully suggest to you that you might be looking at the wrong thing there, because if you're looking at refusals, the amount would be minuscule. But if you're looking at delegated approvals, which can have the same effect. If you're looking at a refusal, an applicant can reapply, and it costs them nothing, or they can go to appeal if they get a refusal. So to investigate that, to my mind, would be pointless. But it's only a suggestion. I'm only.
No.
But if you want to investigate something, investigate the approvals, the delegated approval, which is the highest percentage of the two.
I hear you. Yeah.
It's 90% of them.
The assignment name that I propose is the perception of the delegated authority to refuse planning permission.
That's right.
So perhaps that delegated authority to refuse is there, even if there are no refusals. It says there is a perception. You know, these are the guys that can stop you doing that. I don't know.
To some it might look sinister.
Yeah.
Well, the point is that the amount would be so tiny, the amount of refusals that are delegated would be so tiny. So if you were looking, what is the public's perception? The public's perception of those, well, they can either alter them and have a free application or go to appeal. 99% of the ones that go to appeal of those refusals are upheld by the inspectors. They agree with us. It's very, very rare an inspector reverses a delegated refusal. In fact, I would think it's probably 1 in 100.
What's the procedure for if somebody's refused? Can you ask or insist it goes to committee?
No, you do that beforehand. So, application comes in. You will know in your ward whether it's likely to, whether you want it to come to committee, whether you've got sympathy with it and you'd like to make a better decision at committee with all the facts. So you must ask for it, you must give a planning reason why you want it to go to committee, and it must be done within a certain number of days.
So you can ask that it not be delegated? And
that's right, but you've got to have a proper planning reason why. Like for instance, let's say Byfield surgery was one for instance, and the officers recommended it for refusal. Now, you could say, as a local member, a planning reason for that would be, I accept the planning officer's planning reasons for refusal, but I think it's more beneficial to the community to get, to actually...
Sorry. What I'm asking is, can the applicant do it, or is it only the member?
No, it's a local member.
Parish councils,
or local member.
effectively, parish council objections can bring it, a statutory objector.
Or a member, the elected.
Yeah, so it's all in the scheme.
No, that's interesting.
If you're looking at the terms of the delegations in the Constitution, that's a matter for not S&I, that would be corporate governance.
Right.
But I'm afraid we have to work within certain rules from government and certain rules. I mean, we make planning policy, and if we don't stick to our planning policy,
Sure.
we're the members that make it. Whatever you do, I mean, we've got nothing to hide. You investigate it, but
that's very interesting. Thank you.
I can see little benefit.
I'm going to suggest, because it's Ian's thing anyway, that we actually defer that anyway. But thank you.
Makes sense.
Can I thank you? It's been nice.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Just having two people, smashing.
Should make a planning committee.
I'm going.
Wonderful. So moving briskly on, we are on to strategic plan.
Yeah. I say Julie the trouble. See you soon.
Goodbye, ladies and
Cheers.
So, can't remember actually the normal process on this one, but we usually just focus on what's amber or red. Yeah. So there's that first page. They're both green. Showing there. 1 quarter left of the year. On to the next page. Again, that one's green. Again, they're both green. Sorry, the top one's green. This is amber because it's expecting to be turning green by the end of the year.
For the benefit of the sort of minutes, I think, do you want to do a sort of, I haven't just played it, but a brief summary perhaps, or rather than go through all this, turn up to you, but what do you think? in a nutshell, things are going to plan, aren't they?
Yeah,
That's
things
what
go
I'm
to
saying.
plan. So that was the B2.2 Economic Development Strategy actions. So that's amber. That's the first exception. The next one, which is showing red, is the secondary school. The target is in the plan, completely outside our control. It was looking like this was going to progress, but it really isn't now. So that's going to stay red as far as we can tell.
When did we get back to actually thinking about the plan? I remember a few discussions about this with the town to town implementation working group, and about whether we're going to see a third secondary school. I mean, there may be a third secondary school if we're going for the northeast extension.
And that application is in?
I mean, the application is in. The original discussion was around about Spawn, about whether Spawn wanted to have a sort of outsourced school in Daventry. My understanding is that we don't have formally. Do we have a policy? I mean, from a planning perspective, yes, we need to have a policy. But
the council doesn't have a formal planning policy of any sort. It was a local community aspiration to improve education, and there was and that's where this came from originally. But it's it got so far, got through the first round, as you say. Spawn were lined up and they were looking at potential sites, but it's not got through whatever the next round was, and we haven't had any formal confirmation either way, but the Education and Skills Funding Agency haven't confirmed any capital investment in a new school site in Daventry, so that's not going to change.
Concerned about education in Daventry, I'm quite content to see that it's being read.
So B4.1 has turned green since the last quarter. That's national media coverage. Major planning applications, topical, considering the previous presentation, that's still green. Electric vehicle charging points. So that's green. Whole areas, that's why you can see it. Yeah, so that is increasing, and you can see significantly over time. And there's targets for the charge points. E1.2, another one that's green, that's EPC rating, the environmental one. Waste, which is not reused, recycled or composted. Low is good, and you can see we're below the target there, so that's excellent. That makes sense now. E3.1, we're slightly under on the action days to enhance our environment, but that's amber because we were expecting to have been able to get those delivered for the end of the year. It's actually possible that may not be delivered now because some events are being postponed or cancelled due to coronavirus readiness, but we'll know the outcome of that by the end of the month.
There are a couple of things tomorrow and a week tomorrow. Are these still on here?
We're taking things are going ahead according to like a risk-based approach. So, for example, the pigeon, the birds of prey in the town centre event today, that went ahead as previously advertised and planned, but we removed the market stall element because of the social contact in there.
Yeah, I mean, when The measurement is the number of action days as distinct from the amount of action. I thought it was great that there was an action day last week in the Headlands. It was, the bit that was the action day was going to be the litter bit that went with the amnesty for collecting all furniture and stuff. I'm not absolutely certain, but I think that the sum total of the Long Trevor and the Headlands was myself and a couple of people across from the Grange. I might be wrong, but I get the impression that was it, which struck me as being it met the target and that something had been organised, but in that something had been achieved, I just felt that was, my goodness, that didn't work.
I'm sure some events are more popular and more well attended than others, but I can certainly find out a debrief on those. I'm sure I'll get any in due course. So that one's green, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one's red. So this is the Overston Hall planning brief. That's delayed. That's been reported through to council. So the delay was because we were expecting some more enabling development sites to come forward. That hasn't happened. So now we're cracking on with commissioning this piece of work, which has been delayed due to PERDA. Only that doesn't apply this week like it did last week.
But it's gone, isn't it?
Exactly, but
exactly.
The consultation period was going to avoid PERDA. So it's Conservation area appraisals is on target. Moving on to the next one. Self-serve is above target too. That's a good positive outcome. If you recall, the big spike last year was to do with very high number of customer contacts following the change of environmental services contract. So we saw like freakishly high numbers last year. But what's really positive is that some of those have fallen off, but it's actually sustained at quite high levels compared to previous years. I should be able to show you if I do that. So it's, we've sustained those. That's like would be there to there. So we're quite pleased with that. That's showing positive movement. I think that's the way things are going. So these are all green. So likewise, housing condition interventions. That's really good.
Excellent.
The rest of that strategic plan is red, so I think that's just going to be outside the original time scale. And again, that was rescheduled because of PERDA, which was for the general election. But bear in mind on that one, that's now been through council, so that's us. We were reporting to the end of the last quarter as opposed to now. And then that's the final one, isn't it? That's the final one. So council tax collection is good, MDR connection is good, and then we've got income from commercial rents is a tad down, but it's on amber, so they're expecting that to go back to target. Commercial floor space is also slightly down. I thought I got all this set up, but obviously didn't work exactly right. So reserves, that one's green. health and safety recommendations are actioned in a timely manner. We're expecting that to be green by the end of the year.
I mean, why has it been just a temper?
Pardon?
Why has it just been a temper? Is there any sort of
basically,
particular thing of?
There's a lesson to be learned in how you set targets on this, to be honest, because actually when you're going to do health and safety audits, you don't know whether you're going to identify one action or 12 each time you do an audit. And then it's about people setting targets, because you're agreeing actions with people and they're setting targets, and probably not realising that if things outside their control happen. So for example, the fire risk assessment was a big part of the one from the year before where we went red when we were only at 86%, and we were, that's only just being rectified now. Some of the outstanding, so the new fire escape and the chamber and the lift being fixed. So some of it is around that, but it's basically as actions are identified during the year, if they're supposed to be done during the year, so set a very high target on that, and I suppose it's about making sure when the assessor is agreeing targets with managers, about making sure that's realistic. Don't be setting targets that are beyond being achieved, really. So previous year's targets, some of those we report those, but if you've still got outstanding targets from 2 years ago, you don't want them to come back and bite you either. So it's pretty. We went through this at the Safety Advisory Group, and we're confident that that's going to be green by the end of the year, which will be the first time we've managed it since it was a new target from 2017-18. So workplace wellbeing, this is an excellent one. So that's looking amber, isn't it? It's a workplace wellbeing on the first one. So since this, because this is only reporting us up to the end of December, isn't it? Because we're now in the final quarter. And since then, we've got 6 embedded. As of last week, we've had all of them assessed, so all of the 12 have been assessed. We have 10 fully embedded, and we've got 1 at the next level down, but the word escapes me. I think it might be progressing or some such word. It's there, sorry. We've got 2 assessed as establishing, and the other 10 are embedded, and there's a brand new one that we've just started working on, the 13th one. So next time that's going to be green. We were already best in county having got the 6, but it really is something we've done through health and safety and also through the Green Air Health and Workforce Group, and that's the assessor was absolutely, well, you can see she's been quoted in there. There's a real cultural difference here as compared to all the other councils in Northamptonshire, because we're working on it, but we've really got this workplace wellbeing stuff down. It's an important part of the culture amongst officers. So but excellent. I can already tell you it's as green as anything in there. And then that leaves us with, that was also green, investors and people. And then does this go on? So, because the satisfaction surveys, I think there's some information on the agenda for that as well, isn't there? Because Mark was going to be presenting. Did he pass that through?
No. Oh yes, he has.
Yes, he has. So we'll cover that on the agenda there. Yeah. But we're well within target on that. C4. This is the most awful mouse. So we've achieved the corporate plan overall. We're 90% on that, so that's pretty good on the corporate plan.
Brilliant. Well done. Thank you very much for that. All right. Everyone. Thank you. That so moves us on to the assignment sort of updates, presentations and things, which will be probably a bit shorter than usual because of the people that aren't here. Let's launch straight in, shall we, to A, which 27's got my name on it. I asked permission of what I thought would be the chairman, before I became chairman, permission to change my mind on the assignment, and he said, I think he said it'd be fine, or he certainly said I could put it to this meeting, because I would like to change my assignment to one to look into solar panels and solar panel group buying schemes. And I'm glad you're here, Maria, because I'd like to sort of pick your brains about the practicalities of it. To illustrate, I spoke to another Mr. Frost, George Frost, who is the country manager at iChooser, and he explained how it works with other councils. And in a nutshell, the way it works is that you tie up with something like this, and it's for the council's perspective, it's cost neutral. That is to say, the council aren't going to make anything, but it's out of it, any money out of it. It's not going to lose anything, because any money spent publicising it will be reimbursed. And in simple terms, the way the scheme works is to offer to people living in the district to see if they want to be part of a group buying scheme, or as a sort of to see if they've got an interest in it. Just saying that they've got an interest in it clearly doesn't commit them to it. Indeed, they can pull out at any stage. But the idea is, and very sometimes armed with that information, the coordinator of this, in this case, iChooser, would go to the market and say, look, I've got, say, 500 households that are up for this. What's the best price that you can give me this to provide us and things? And the chances are that when you've got 500 households, you're going to get a better price than if you've got one. That's it in a nutshell. Now, he's worked with they work with Essex Council, Kent, Lee, Dorset, and what I would like to do is to look into the practicalities of us doing that here. There is a catch, which is that because you have quite a low take-up rate, and typically, if you send a mail shot out to I don't know, 1,000 people, even though it's such a hot topic, you might well get 5% coming back, which is still a great deal more than the 2% that is normal in direct marketing technology. Of that, maybe only 1 in 5 would actually go on to get the panel. So what I'm trying to say to you is, if you mail shot 100 people, you might get one person, one of those will go on to want it. Now they need, the reason I only talk to unitaries normally and county councils is because they need north of 100,000 people to make it worthwhile, because of those percentages that I've just given you. We can't compete with that. So ordinarily I'd sort of bat this off into the unitary, were it not for the fact that this autumn they are going to be working with, they think they've got Warwickshire County Council on side, and I've got a contact at Warwickshire County Council called Jackie Lawrence, and I'm new to this panel, so I'm a bit I need to learn more about the procedures, but I would like to explore tying up with Warwickshire County Council to see if they want to work with this.
If it works the same as iChooser does for the big switch, then anyone anywhere in the country can sign up, put their details in, and go in the auction. So it's the fact that it's in Warwickshire would not stop us joining in. And if you see, I've actually, notwithstanding what didn't get voted through at council, it is on our list. So if you would like to share all that information you've gathered, I will make sure that you don't need to do a task panel to that. That would be a really helpful start in Jolie exploring exactly what we can do in terms of solar panel schemes. So if there is a solar panel scheme through Big Switch or anyone else, because that's it's iChooser again that do it.
I've contacted iChooser, but there's others out there, aren't there?
Yeah. So if
one time there's two ways you can do this. You could either encourage the people living in the district to join a scheme like iChooser, but what I'm interested in going to one stage more than that and doing what you could say, sort of taking their advice, which is it's way too early to make a proposal. I'm just sort of looking into the possibility of making a proposal where you would mail shot all our 25,000 households in the district. I shouldn't I? And going down that route. At the very least, I'd look into it. Is that a good use of an estimated task panel?
It sounds like one operational thing that can be done by the environmental. It's on her list of things to do. If you want to take that on instead in a task panel, I think you might slow it down. That's like a single issue thing, but as you can see, I've added that on as already.
Maybe I could talk to Jolie and see how that progresses. You're right. If it's not meaty enough, and if it's only going to slow down things which the council are working on anyway, then I've got no desire to do that whatsoever.
I mean, I think it's great that you've started the legwork, and that will save us some. But it's on her list. We hadn't put a date on it yet because I wanted to get this. Everything else has got a date on it, but I wanted to get the in principle idea that we see this as a dynamic thing, this action plan. There's the original 20 things which have been broken down to make sure they absolutely include everything that's been agreed. So some of these have multiple elements to the recommendation.
Could you go to the one you said before about servants? Thanks.
So I've basically created new actions for them at the bottom. That's my proposed way forward to this.
Big switch. When you say big switch?
Well, we do big switch through iChooser, so it's.
That's to do with.
So this is when people we use iChooser to do our big switch scheme.
Yeah.
So
changing energy providers.
Yes. So I should have put explore iChooser solar panel schemes.
Right.
So that's because I spent a lot of time on that, and I've mixed up my names. But but that's exactly what we mean by that, and we'd be more than happy for you to provide information and assist with that, and give us who your contact is. And
can I just ask? Maybe you don't know this, but with the best one in the world. Yeah. When you wrote that, what did you have in mind?
I had in mind to see if we could, in the same way. It didn't go as a report to council. We've got a very active green and healthy workforce group. We've got green credentials coming out of our ears here. And we identified some years ago doing the big switch through iChooser. Went through the due process. It didn't have to go to council because we didn't need any budget or anything like that. It was something we could do effectively like a promotion. And I mean, as you say, it's predominantly about fuel poverty, but that's no bad thing either. But the fact that people are more aware that they can switch, and they might want to switch to providers who do energy meters and all sorts as well. So that's in the same way as we did that. What we're proposing here is this something? What does this involve? When we first did Big Switch, the frontline staff were involved. There was a big campaign. They were involved in helping people get it going. We were doing targeted communications and all sorts. So with the same sort of thing.
Was the driver from the council's perspective to I thought it was to help save money for people.
Yeah. People, we've got 50 odd villages in Daventry district with no gas, so they either pay very expensive electric, or they don't have anything on, or they have to pay fuel, liquid fuel prices, and that's subject to theft and all sorts. So it was driven from fuel poverty, but the energy, the cost of energy is a bigger factor. Is a bigger factor.
Did it cost the council anything?
No.
Did it make the council anything?
That's what we paid for that leaflet that went with the council tax. So we get a referral fee as it gets popular. So that's £1,500 or something.
There are other issues that will come back to later on the agenda. I'm thinking just in terms of what you propose as a task panel. I can see that if there is something on which we have already decided the council ought to proceed, then we probably don't need a task panel. There are areas though, and there's one thing that I don't know if this is relevant or not, but I'm just saying, I felt that as a member of the task panel that I ought to look into deciding if I should have solar panels or things.
I've got them.
You've got someone, you're ahead of me. And recently I've had quite a lot of email exchanges with a guy, Mark Partridge, whom we met, who heads a specialist company that's based on the Cartlands and the reputation. And I had to go back because marketing solar panels looks as if it might become the replacement for double-glazing salesmen. And I've had quite a number, including one who came to visit. And I duly noted down all the details and everything. Clearly the guy hasn't been back. He obviously detected that I was a little unimpressed. But in putting it to this little company in Daventry, the word I get back was that he'd done his research in it and said, they're a bag of rigged sharks. The company is just about to go bust. They're probably hiving this off to somebody else. Anybody who, on the basis of these calculations, could tell you what was good for you, can nowhere near them. But did come back with the arguments about, well, for us, we said solar panels might not be the answer for us. Heat pumps might be a much better option and things like that. Yeah. And I just wonder if there is something that we need to look into. That is, we can't give people advice because we're not experts, but at least point to where they get advice and what questions they need to ask. With we want them to do something. We want them to solar panel with heat burst or something equivalent. But it may be that there is there is something else that we need to look at in terms of how this market is going to develop and how people are at risk of being ripped off.
That's a fair point. I mean, would that be all right could you put me in touch with Jelly if I could learn a little bit more about what's being planned? Exchange information. Say, tell her what I know, and just to repeat, I've got no desire to slow this down.
I think you need to, if you're verbal, because your agenda item is to provide verbal feedback on a voluntary services report. Are you now saying you don't wish to proceed with that?
Well, I've got another problem as well, because I've joined this Scrutiny improvement panel kind of sort of halfway through effectively, and when I agreed to take that on, I was taking over from Adam Brown, and I was going to take on his work and finish it off. Despite my best endeavours, I haven't been able to persuade Adam to give me that material. So that's one of the reasons I want to change minds. Because
I mean, you're correct. So if you are proposing, Chair, to stop that task panel, consider it closed. Presumably, has that happened before? If you propose that and that is agreed by the rest of the committee, then you can close that.
I've got no idea what's.
Wasn't that
I never received anything. I don't know.
I think then if there is a suggestion for new panels, we can look at that at number 9.
Okay.
That would,
All right.
to try and get us back on track.
It's a prime reason. I just wonder what it was. I mean, from the. Anyway, I'll probably never know.
So are we agreed that that panel is now considered closed?
Well, if it was ever open. But I mean,
We can't have a split decision, so are we agreed?
When you joined this committee to take over from Adam Brown, who was the then senior task panel on the voluntary sector.
That was the understanding, yeah.
When I joined this committee, it was to take over from Jason Pritchard, who was supposed to be doing a task panel on the voluntary sector when I take it on. And then that's something else came along, and Adam decided that he would do it. He would do it himself. So, you know, I think that the idea of that task panel on the voluntary sector is obviously an important one and can be quite a big one. But I think that at this stage it needs to be given much more focus as to what it is about the voluntary sector that we want to be. And maybe the focus now needs to be what is going to be the impact of reorganisation on support for the voluntary sector here.
So if you're agreeing to, because this is...
But no, I'm not suggesting you do it.
So if you're agreeing the voluntary services support one is...
I think should be
is agreed closed.
deferred. Because I think there's
if you want to do something different, which would require a new scope, then pick it up on 9, I would say.
Okay.
So if there is. But perhaps that's one to bring back to a bigger meeting.
Sure.
Yeah.
What do you think is better?
Because you can suggest one, unless you want to take it on.
I think it needs some focus to it rather than just
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Can we defer number B, assignment 32, to the next meeting in the absence of Councillor Harrington Carter?
Yeah.
Likewise, C, of Councillor Robertson's.
Yeah.
Moving on to implementation activity, assignment 19. How do you think we should play this?
See, if you just go through the action.
Is that on here, is it?
No, it isn't. It's only the 31
Do we need to go to these?
We should, yeah.
Okay.
So what number is that assignment?
That's 19, so that one's now complete. So everything's now.
Yeah, everything is complete on that one, so we can just note that.
Just put a tick against that one, great.
Yeah.
Number B, assignment 20.
That's all.
So there's one thing remaining on that.
Okay, half tick.
So that is pending guide for parish and town councils held under planning applications. And website contents to be reviewed to cover parish management of public open spaces.
Okay.
So that's going to be included in the infrastructure and development contributions supplementary planning documents. So that one's, that's the update.
26.
So this is parking in Daventry Estates. So 2 of those are amber, 3 are green. Number 2. Okay, so this, the road jag set up public city campaigns where inconsiderate parking causes public danger. So that happened, but to instigate white line markings or tiros where appropriate. So there's a set of guidelines have been drawn up by the safety agencies. Traffic regulation orders.
Oh, yeah. I'm unhappy. This task panel grew out of discussion
that I had with the residents, so the neighbourhood watch group in Timken, and we had a long discussion. Actually, at the meeting, I'm not quite sure why I was there, but Colin Poole was there to do his bit too. But we wanted to say that the company needed a task panel to look at quite a number of issues. And they all appeared to be very similar to issues that were raised by the residents up in Middlemore. But on both sides recognising that the bigger problems, if you looked at Daventry's estates, the bigger problems were actually in the headlands. The headlands more than the Grange and the South Groups, but that sees they were building estates with parking areas that were not necessarily next to people's houses, but were around the back or somewhere didn't necessarily work. But the headlands is a more conventional roads with houses alongside the roads and people park outside their houses. There's enough room, and of course there isn't. And yet we've got a report. Nothing has appeared yet. But people in the Timken of the year say, what on earth happened? We were going to have leaflets that we were going to be able to put out in the Timken about considerate parking, and yet we don't seem to have anything yet. We talk here about the rollout and everything else. There was, I think, did I see mentioned before that something had happened down in Woodford? The big issue that's got a green against it is the others that came from Cowper Road. The only thing that has been resolved in Cowper Road is that Richard Erger managed to get an agreement from the County Council that they would not prosecute and they would turn a blind eye to the modifications of the verge that people, County Council owned verges that people had made themselves. Those who had simply gone out and said we're going to put down paving slabs or rubble where they leave their cars over the verge, and they would accept that. But the area is a mess. It is full, I believe, of potential for argument, because by the time that people had sort of cleaned a bit of the verges, what happens if somebody else comes along and parks in their area? They're doing it where they drive over the verge, whether or not drop curbs and things like that give them any entitlement to an entrance or exit. And I just feel that, for us to tick that and say that is green, I just think there's a host of things here.
I think the council has taken it as far as it can go, because there's the county council has said they will agree if funding can be found. Certainly the residents of Cowper Road aren't raising issues on a regular basis. It's not been referred to the road jack. That would be the ideal way to get it. That's where we know about.
But did I know? We did a survey. We did a survey in Cowper Road.
I mean, it's gone very quiet for a very long time, Ken. There's been we've got no reports of there being, poor, and where there are ongoing poor neighbourhood issues like inconsiderate parking, we do get those. They come through via the police, but there's nothing live going on at all on Cowper Road.
Perhaps what the difficulty that Cowper Road faces is that me as a district councillor and Richard Erger as a county councillor, and I get Richard gets the correspondence too about what is there. Richard has been negotiating with the people in Northampton about how they regard it. I have assumed that within TDC that Richard's got a little bit more leverage over the budget and what happens than I do, perhaps. But we have an issue that has not been resolved there.
And it's as it says on the update, it's unlikely to progress unless DDC were to agree funding, and that none of this looks likely. And it's not. This goes right back to when I first raised this. And residents from Cowper Road came along to ask questions at a council meeting. It was fairly early in my stint as a councillor. And that's been that many years.
And you were right from that stage that it is there as part of NCC policy. It actually states that the NCC will, provided that there are no sort of safety or other issues, be quite happy for people to create parking bays on verges, provided it is the district council equivalent that pays the cost. We've always known that. The issue is, well, are we going to pay the cost?
It's never got beyond. It's never got beyond that, because there's not been any full proposal through.
Richard says that he's discussed it with you. Not you personally.
There's nothing came through the last round of growth bids or the round of growth bids before that, for that matter. They certainly didn't get through them, because it's not. I think that, if I recall correctly, when it was considered as a potential growth bid area, on the basis that you could be opening a floodgate for hundreds of hotspots, and by all means, that's not the worst. That is certainly not the worst area.
We've had that discussion before.
Yeah, so I think there's no appetite here. There's certainly no budget option at the county council. So this
is the message that I've got back from discussions I've had with Richard Erger, that the answer is essentially no.
Yeah, and there's it's complex as well, because there's no other agencies with any reason to. Because it's mixed tenure, it's mixed ownership there. So it's not even like you can say Futures Housing, can you put your hand in your pocket? Because it's. I think people muddle on. And I doubt you'd get, even in that area, I very much doubt, with friends who live on that street, I very much doubt you would get consensus as to what would be the ideal solution. But certainly as far as the actions that were agreed, they've been taken as far as they can be, hence the colour coding on them.
Well, okay, I would accept that I have got an issue with this.
Yeah.
But technically, in terms of of 5, I sort of accept that in terms of this committee, there was an agreement that was going to do something. But the reaction was that the county council would be requested, and the county council has been requested and said no.
Yeah.
And therefore, technically, that's agreement.
So you'd have to, am I right in saying that if Ken was to get this changed, you'd have to make a proposal for council for funding and things, wouldn't you? So how you get that changed? So that's, I can't go, just in terms of drawing a random list and moving on through the agenda, that cannot be progressed without.
Yeah.
That's the next stage, wouldn't it?
And that would be either through Simon's team or via Kevin Fagan through Community Safety, because he chairs the road jag, to say. But if you were going to make a case to get something funded, it would be to be solving a problem. And my point to you is that that's not even on the radar as a hotspot, because we don't have a whole load of problems being reported. It's not a source of significant neighbour tension. We haven't got fire engines saying hung over or whatever. So there's your problem.
Well, we probably, in terms of tonight, we've probably taken it as far as we can tonight.
Can I come back to 2? And because I can remember asking before about 1, which has been completed, and I think that was marked as being completed the last time that we looked at this. There was, and I can remember asking, where other than Woodford has a leaflet been out? And I don't recall hearing anything about a leaflet being out to places from which these concerns
the purpose of this one is if these hotspot areas come through, or whether they come in through the police, fire and rescue, whoever's a lead agency through the road jack will be dealing with them, and then we will help communities help themselves. So we haven't got the resources to go and do all the legwork, but we will help them. We'll produce leaflets and give them the materials to support them, and we haven't had a request come through for that. So if there is still an appetite for that you're aware of, Timken or Middlemore or anywhere else, then do direct them in point them towards Kevin or Lindsay in the community safety team.
I don't have in front of me the original report from the task panel. I mean, the task panel was Mark Wesley and myself. I think I can remember what the report said because I wrote 90% of it. And a lot of it was about, the need for getting a leaflet out. It had an appendix. We drew up what a leaflet might say, what it might need to say. And I can remember sending it to, who's the guy at the Rojab? The safety group,
Kevin.
I can remember sending it to him, asking University and sending it to him at that stage to Sam Dobbs. I don't think either ever got around to him coming back and saying yes, they thought it was fine.
I mean, there's been,
producing.
I think there was one, it's Woodford, I think Crick might have been the other one. There's been 3 or 4. And they've been like little pilots. They've got different agencies. So we know. So where we know there's a problem, then they are. They're all geared up to do that again.
Well, I have needed to tell the neighbourhood watch group in Timken, which you probably know. It operates as really as a residents' association. Or what name. I've told them because I had done it before. But is that look, if there is no progress in this, I will work with them and I will pay for having a leaflet which they can deliver in Timken. But I simply want to make sure that whatever the leaflet is that I put together,
it needs to be tailored to
does not misrepresent the law.
No, and it needs to. Each of the things that have happened, it's not one leaflet fits all. It's about tailoring whatever the specific issues are, whether it's in considered parking or whatever other thing. Because sometimes it's parking, blocking drives, sometimes it's on pavements. And it's also about making people aware of actually, if someone isn't paying their road tax, they can park there. It's being neighbourly. So it could bring in other issues. It's not. That's why it's through the road drag. It's not just about cars and parking. It's about.
You appreciate that if in the end, if I need to actually produce the leaflet myself, it will be just myself. I will be able to say other things about the fact that the Rojab and others have not been able to do this. That Daventry District Council has been able to spend 12 million or something in a cinema, but when it comes to a couple of £100 for a leaflet for Timken, it's a different matter.
If there had been issues referred through to the Rojab, they would be supporting them still. I see those.
They did get a fire engine or something to drive around, and I think the fire engine did some leafleting. I think they have already done leafleting, but not through the council.
If there is appetite amongst the Residents Association to do more work, then I would encourage them to come through to the council, to Kevin's team, and we'll coordinate that with highways, police, fire, and we'll make sure that the right product gets produced, and we will help the community help deal with it, because it's about being neighbourly in the end. That's what this is about, and that's what that team's job is. And I don't think it should be about scoring points off different agencies or being political. It's about solving a problem, and that's what they do really well.
Absolutely.
Folks, there's nothing to stop you, presumably, of this meeting, picking up the phone to one another and chatting about this if it needs to be taken further. Otherwise, we'll be here. So, 29, antisocial behaviour. We've got a meatloaf that said 2 out of 3 ain't bad. 2 greens, haven't we? Is there anything, Maria, that you want to say about that? This is assignment 29.
Okay, so I actually attended the county community safety board for Ian last week, so I know that this is progressing, and it's, as you can see, the target is for this to be completed by the end of the financial year, so we've got a couple of weeks yet, but so in amber currently.
Yeah. Good, well hopefully within a month or so they'll all be green. Alright? The climate change, what is there to say about that hasn't been said already? Can you head the task panel? Would you like to say anything?
Yes. I think it's very, very unfortunate that this meeting now is only two of us, and that we're meeting with you, because there has been discussion amongst members of what was the task. Recognition, yes, that there are things that have been done, and for that we are grateful. But a sense that not nearly enough has been done. That there is a lack of any sense of emergency in the way that the council has responded. And I just feel that we need to be absolutely out and open and say that, look, you know, we don't think what has happened so far is good enough. We're grateful for you for having taken on the role, or having not refused the role of...
I'm delighted to take on the role, actually, because I'm well known in these parts for being committed to the green agenda. I'm happy to be there.
Just one of the things that I think that makes it slightly difficult for us, many other councils have got climate champions. Now, as far as I know, I mean, everyone I've come across, the climate champion has been a leading councillor who is there giving the political leadership to activities around about climate change, rather than somebody who is an officer.
I think the point here, Ken, is that the report went to the council, Strategy Group and Council, and it was the council's decision to agree the action plan. And there is a leading council, that's the Environment Portfolio Holder for Climate Emergency, and I am the council's climate change champion, which is the natural progression actually from my long-term role as the chair of the Greener, Healthier Workforce team. So we've pulled this together. I don't think we're going to get very far at all going over old ground. I just wanted, this is the agreed action plan, this is the update on it, and as you can see, I've got an appetite for, expanding that to other actions.
This is new ground. I mean, the concern I raise about the climate champion being yourself, rather than somebody much less suited, but a member, is that if we are in the position of wanting to criticise others in the position of wanting to criticise the actions or lack of actions of the council, if it was any other issue, it would be appropriate that people make their criticisms toward Richard Darger as the leader, and not to Ian Vincent. I would prefer to be in the position where, if we are being critical and saying that that person has not delivered well, that we're talking about somebody who is in an elected position and is answerable to the electorate, and in a position to respond. I cannot now attack, if I want to do, of course, I cannot now attack the climate champion, because the climate champion is an officer who is not in a position to publicly respond. And I think that structurally that is a mistake.
Which can be noted, I'm sure, on the minutes, but it's not something we can really. That's the decision was
made by Ian.
Yeah, as per the report that went to Strategy Group and Council, which was agreed by Council, Ian was to designate a climate change champion. Ian's job is to designate roles for officers. Ian would never be designating a role to a member. That was what was proposed. There was no debate on that point, I don't believe. I think it was.
Of course there wasn't, because there wasn't a debate in hardly anything. The whole bloody thing was shut down as a debate. However, I accept the point that you make, that from the purposes of this meeting tonight, the decision was that a member of the senior management team would be appointed, and a senior member of the management team, has
has been appointed. I mean, given the time, I don't want to go through every one of these lines, or even every one of the lines that cause me concern. But can I start on one sort of general category of concerns? We were upset that so many recommendations were made that we had made that were simply going to be put to the new shadow authority. We felt that was unfortunate because, of course, it was very important that things were referred to the new shadow authority, because that is going to be the future. That is the thing that will be here during the period where most of the big actions of climate change need to be taken. Our concern at the time was that the new body would not be in a position to take action until it was formally in existence in April 2021. However, we're now in a situation in which you're going to refer things after May to a body that may not exist for another 12 months, and therefore I think a lot of that needs to be rethought.
I think there's one of two things will happen, and that is either through government guidance, a decision-making body will be established in order to get to vesting day in 2021, or it will be deferred to 2022. So whether it's not, even if there's not an elected shadow council, the council will be made up of NCC and borough councillors in the west and the north, and maybe they'll elect a cabinet. So in the next week or two, given the decision to cancel the elections, we're expecting that guidance, that decision coming from central government. So it's not going to go away. We will not get, if unitary council is going to be set up is in April 2021, then in the next couple of months we are going to know what the decision-making body is, and there's absolutely nothing to stop us carrying on. Just take out the word unitary from the action and be lobbying that. But if we can hand this to the unitary councils on a plate, we can continue working with there's quite a well-established climate change group operating county-wide. There's a climate change strategy going through the councils. This is on people's agenda. This is not something that we're leaving.
Let me ask a question though. Whereas there was set to be, from this May, there was set to be shadow unitary councillors that could have driven this forward. Who would do this now in their absence?
All the councillors. If they carry on, if there's no elections, the existing district, borough and county councillors will form, and they will be in a position where they are making decisions.
Right.
So either because they're going to be electing some proportionate shadow cabinet, west and north, or whatever. So we need to know what that mechanism will be, but there will be that mechanism. The other alternative is or giving more power to the other ones that have been established, west and north committees.
Right.
You either give them, so there will be a governance mechanism of councillors, elected members, to guide the unitary LGR work. So whether it's not going to be unitary council now, they've cancelled those elections because of the national emergency around coronavirus, but something else will be in place within weeks, and that's who will be lobbying.
Just before we go to you again, there's a really good, I know because I've been on to their meetings, South Northants have a climate change working group already. What scope would there be? And I'm sort of really fire this at you from the hip and you haven't a chance to prepare and all the rest of it. But anyway, they've got this climate change working group already. What chance would there be, or what scope would there be of collaboration? Yeah,
I thought I'd add that onto the list of things to look at. In fact, I'm sure it's mentioned in here. Because
that could be a really smart way.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, because clearly we know we are heading towards.
It just seems so logical.
Yeah. So
we ought to be working together anyway.
Yeah, I think we've added that into one of them.
712 new again. Line 712.
Thank you. I know I put it in there.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking with the media. It might not be quite.
I think you're right the first time, we did 3 point.
So, yeah, I'm sure I've mentioned somewhere that we're aware of South Northampton. Yeah, NBC and SNE both have climate change forums, so exploring options, expand, extend or complement. So that's
it's more than a forum for what it's worth, but it's a real entity, you know. But Ken, you carry on.
Can I just say on 16, the climate change forums. I know they've talked about having a climate change forum in South Northants. They've got one in Northampton, but these forums are nearer to what we put forward as being, a broad network. We'll give it a name: Daventry District Climate Emergency. Their forums are of groups of activists that are not members of the council that will come together. We've been invited to all the meetings, and recent meetings. South Northants have also invited colleagues from Northampton Borough, although to their disappointment, nobody from Northampton Borough has ever turned up. Now, I just feel that could be the nucleus of something, very useful. I think that where it would need to change, it has been set up with funding from South Northants. They have got funding to take on a full-time researcher to work with them, but to make recommendations to South Northants. It would need to somehow be, the nicest possible way, need to be slightly prized away from being a South Northants group that involved people from Daventry and Northampton to something that was more focusing on what the new unitary would need to do.
Yeah, hence, it's about exploring, isn't it? And we're going to be, in just over a year's time, we're going to be one council, unless there's a change of law again.
I was going to say, so you're understanding that...
Well, yeah, they'd have to change. They could change the law again and make it and put it back to 2022, or they could just... Or they need to change the law one way or another, because there needs to be a governance mechanism, elected members steering the two new unitaries. So like I say, we'll get that answer in the next few weeks.
So once again, in order to move this forward, it's fair to say, Maria knows I've used the views of the task panel. Let's hope that we can make some progress. Certainly the last few days and weeks, the climate has, the context has changed, it's a moving feast.
Even in the few weeks since this was put together, some of these we might have to be looking at different dates or what have you, but this is the first version of this. It's my intention to report this regularly through to this group. It's just now a standing item on the SMT agenda. I will be reporting it through to portfolio holders, and I will be keeping the SNI councillors up to date with any significant progress on actions. This is a real life action plan.
Can I just say, one of the things that we put in our task panel report was a recommendation that DDC would need to consider what the demand would be in staffing as a result of this extra other activity. I noticed in this that I don't know if the environmental improvement officer is hopelessly underemployed at the moment, but it appears in this she has got a hell of a lot added to her remit.
A lot of what was recommended was in one form or another within our remit anyway. It's just some slight changes of direction. Some of this will be coordinated by her, but supported by the Green Now for the Workforce team. people wearing all sorts of hats who work at this authority will do all sorts of environmental activities. So yeah, it's there's a lot of goodwill and a lot of good practice around this agenda. We're just excited that more people are interested in this now. It's really, it's really climbed up the agenda.
Right. It would be. I don't wish this to. This is why I wish it was a bigger forum. But it would be remiss of me not to refer to the leaflet that is going out with our council tax bills. I believe that Jonathan Harris may have been in touch.
Yeah, you both. He echoed the thoughts that you sent through in your email.
What was the background there? To the uninitiated, it could be an opportunity to ask, couldn't it? But there's obviously logic to it.
There was probably less than 5 working days window from when that decision was made at council as to how the climate emergency action plan would be taken forward. We put on there that we'd managed to get the budget and the agreement to put an A5 leaflet, so the leaflet was going to go in there about Big Switch, and we, having gone through all of the actions and identified that there was a whole load of things going to all householders, and actually as it said in the response to the action plan, you don't want it, we can't be continually posting additional things to every household. There's not just a cost of that, but that's an environmental cost in itself. So that leaflet did include everything it said it was going to do in the action plan, and we got that turned around and made sure it was included. We may have had an opportunity to do a different leaflet with more pages or what have you, but there's a legal restriction on how much you can put in with a council tax leaflet, and something that all the councils were going to send themselves was taken away and replaced by a county-wide unitary leaflet. So we generally, you don't have the option to put an A4 in there, you don't have an option to put 16 pages in. We had the back of an A5.
If you'd had more than 5 working days, would you have done things any differently?
I think we did, we did what we could in the time available, given that we had an A5 leaflet to go there. Now, we do know actually from doing the A5 leaflet the year before for the Big Switch income actually funded that leaflet. And we know that was successful because the Big Switch take-up increased. There's quite an increased curve following that. So we know that several hundred people acted on that leaflet.
We weren't proposing that there would be a leaflet that would be self-funding through people subscribing to anything. It is something that was important for us to do. Now you see, 5 or 6 days, so the leaflet had to be ready by towards the end of February.
I can't remember, it was so few days. The day after council was when I first saw the draft, and it was only a couple of days later, so it was that tight because it had to go off.
But the recommendation that this should happen was made to the Scrutiny Committee that met on the 5th of February. And the papers for the Scrutiny Committee would have been sent out more than they would have been way back in January. There was at least a month to work on it.
There was, but you've got to get this stuff. I mean, there was a very tight time scale, and that leaflet, you've only got an A5 leaflet to get all that information on it, and we were using the back of the Big Switch leaflet, which is what was going out to all householders anyway. So
without a mention of climate emergency. And likewise, I believe there wasn't a mention of climate emergency in the latest edition of Daventry Calling. I think I'm told that I haven't checked this out.
There's the climate emergency communications plan is this week now been drafted, so I can get something around. I can share that with you by email. And that's really where the push, getting that message, having a logo that we use on lots of communications for the whole of the year.
When do these things come back to? I mean, when
when's the next meeting in May? I don't know.
2 months from now. So I think I've got it on my phone.
Because it seems that given that we're actually operating in something that needs to happen over 12 months, that it seems a long time to.
It's the 2nd of June.
2nd of June.
Yeah, because of the preceding elections. So it is.
Yeah, they're not always evenly spaced on the holidays and things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, my hope is that because this is a moving feast. Do you think we could? What other ways? Have you got any thoughts as to how we can sort of communicate this issue to?
As I've just committed, I'm sure as the climate change champion, I will be happy to provide regular updates via email in between meetings. It will be going on the SMT minutes. It will be going to credit holders. Well, yeah, it's the comms plan. Yeah, I mean that's the idea. This is clearly a hot topic. It's in my interest to pick up on the agenda.
Okay, I mean, I don't think we're going to make too much more progress on that tonight.
But we just need to go. We need to go forward now. I mean, that we've got the approved plan. I can get a few extra actions in there.
Is there a way in which we can ask that we do, perhaps we're all going to be instructed to communicate electronically rather than in the same room, but that we can communicate so that we know what is planned, what is going to happen, and we're not left in a position where we're looking back and saying, there was a missed opportunity. So we can have a discussion beforehand.
I'll share the draft communications plan.
I would appreciate that.
And if you've got comments on that, if you've got any suggestions about adding things in, changing timescales or whatever. I mean, we are obviously operating in a shifting environment because of COVID-19 now, but
but we know that there are things that are your expertise, and that you as officers have got to take the decisions on getting things done. But I feel that this is in the dust panel, but very strongly that we would want to actually see it because we feel concerned about it, and we want to feel that we can, if we have ideas that we have encountered from elsewhere, that we can at least put them into debate. I am
more than happy for all members, not just those on the task panel, anyone on the scrutiny, any councillor of this council. I want there to be the ongoing conversations about climate change. If people have got ideas, suggestions, to pass them through. So there's absolutely no barriers to that at all.
Well, that's great when we get the draft. Thanks for that, Mary. That's really cool. Moving on to Simon 33. We've got a full house here, haven't we? Is there anything Mary wants to add?
No, that went straight through, didn't it? So delivered straight away. So impressive turnaround on that.
Wonderful. This is only my second meeting. So how do we approach 1 year post-implementation activity reviews?
Got the reports there that Councillor Wesley did.
Great. So
the first one satisfaction surveys. That's measures are running with enhancements. So that what was agreed has not only been recommended, but we're taking that a bit further. We're actually putting like adverts on the bottom of every email to encourage people to take part in the email survey, the online survey as well. So we're going beyond that.
Right.
And it's also part of discussions county-wide about, as part of the LGR work, making sure we've got the best practice possible for that going forward. So you've got face-to-face, you've got online, you've got telephone surveys, and you've got the opportunity to be involved through. So that's quite a high proportion now compared to the starting point. It's a high proportion now of customers engaging with those satisfaction surveys.
Okay, many thanks.
It's quite. I'm pleased to hear that
consultants that have engaged for the Daventry Town Division. From what I know of them, I believe that they are good. I'm glad that it was possibly all just bluster at the council meeting when some of us put a motion asking that specialist consultants should be engaged for the purpose. Unfortunately, it sometimes happens that anything that we put up as an idea is simply voted down decisively. I'm glad, however, that at least the officers are following the same direction.
Very good. Summary 23, scrutiny of scrutiny.
So yeah, I mean, that's happening. It's a 6th schedule now, so.
It's not exactly much. Can I say to you that Scrutiny was my first experience of this committee, and I wasn't even a member of the committee at the time, but it was led by a very, I think, able councillor, Barry Frenchman at the time, who felt that there needed to be looked. There were various other recommendations that were made by, essentially by Barry Frenchman and myself, that never went anywhere because we were told that there were constitutional or other difficulties that actually prevented it from happening. But I think that one of the concerns that we had was that the Scrutiny Committee was an exceptionally small one, an exceptionally weak one, and I just felt that this evening that's worth mentioning.
Okay, I'll be minuted. The suggestion for new task panels. Yeah, with regards to what I said earlier on, I don't want to score an own goal here. So, would I be allowed to communicate what I know and what I've learned to Jolie and what I'm numerator, and if it's inappropriate use of a task panel, then I'll drop it like a whatever, or maybe it could be tweaked. I realise that in order to be approved, it needs to be approved.
They have to come back tonight. Task panel. That's why I'm saying it might be a lot quicker to get, in the coming weeks. To actually see what progress we can make.
That's fine by me.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Deal with it offline.
Sure, let's do that.
So that would be us to investigate solar panel for households. So not necessarily just by chooser, but actually look at the wider issue and get a paper back.
Yeah,
somewhere.
we should look at the wider issue.
So we'll do that in the form of amending that action, whatever number it was, 21 or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's on.
A new action on that task panel, which is effectively a voluntary additional action by me.
Well, I can help.
Yeah.
It's driven by what seems like a bit of a one-off opportunity to. Ordinarily, we're too small to do this kind of thing. It's just that if Warwickshire have agreed to it, we can ride on their coattails and pull off something really quite nice.
Because we found out by doing the iChooser Big Switch that any of our friends and family who lived anywhere in the country could sign up. And if that same thing applies, if they've got, I mean, maybe it's limited to the solar panels, maybe the providers will only do certain counties.
You're right. You're right. That is absolutely possible. The benefit, as I understand it, of going down this route is that you've got somebody who's going to do all the legwork for you. So if you just do it like randomly, of course, with everybody in the country, teaming up with somebody from Inverness or whatever, then you might get one result, but you've got a better chance of getting a higher take-up rate and a better result because you've got somebody that's sort of driving it.
If they knew that they could get 500 customers in the next 6 months.
Yeah, but the difference between the big switch is that you can switch somebody's electricity without getting anywhere near them. But this I think reading through the details when I was looking at the iChooser site, they require or are required to have somebody that actually comes to visit your house which is why they're not going to want customers in Inverness.
We're on the boundary of Warwickshire,
you know, we're a lot nearer to Warwick than we are to some parts of Northamptonshire.
Yeah,
So-
being quite central. So we'll explore that.
All of it, yeah, exactly. I'll
We'll
find you saying.
explore that as
Wonderful.
part of our climate actions.
Fabulous.
Having agreed that the voluntary sector one is gone.
If that's all right with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Portfolio holder attendance. To resolve which portfolio holder will be requested. Okay. That was actually very interesting from as wasn't it? I don't have particularly strong views. Well, unless
Who was reserved last time?
Councillor Howard.
So you had Councillor Wayne Howard at the last committee on reserve. I think whoever's on reserve is the next one along.
I mean, we're generally trying to think about, well, what are the issues that are come up. I mean, to me, the obvious one, from the sort of discussion we've got, would be Joe Wilford.
How would she feel about that? Presumably there's a whole rotation.
Yeah.
Has she been very recently? Or could we...
No, well,
I'm on no opportunity. This is...
Well, can you, presumably you can just say no. We could do a cordial invite and say how much we'd enjoy her company. And if she turns us down, then she turns us down, doesn't she?
well, actually...
Do you have a particular topic you'd like her to talk about?
Yeah, the environment. Which is
environment, not exclusively, but with a view to, you know, to how we respond on climate emergency. Not to replay the sort of discussion that we've had about other things, but you know, how she would see it.
What if we invited her and she said no, then I guess we've got Wayne as a possible fallback? Would that work?
Yeah, that's your decision, committee.
So what's the worst that can happen? She'll say
Yeah.
Depending on the time, what might be quite interesting would be, I don't know if this is quite falls into Wayne's area, but to be able to talk about some of the ways in which they are planning to conduct the engagement strategy around about the town centre vision. I mean, I'm not thinking of a town issue, but more in terms of the approach that they're planning to use. And in 2 months' time, they should be well advanced in what they're actually doing.
Well, depending on what's going on out there. Because you know,
Sure.
this could be 2 months, this could be 6 months. So,
No,
so public events and things, they might delay things.
we might not have a meeting in 2 months.
I think we might know. Nice. That's great. If I'd be up for that. What's the reason? Would we ask Mark to contact Joe? Is that how it would work? Okay. Okay. Great. Is there any urgent business? But maybe we'll stick to urgent business for the Scrutiny Committee that anyone wants to say or bring up. Wonderful. Well, I very much enjoyed my debut. That brings the meeting to a close. There's no need to agree the next deadline meeting because that's already been agreed.
Yeah,
So wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
So I'll